Yeah, people.
This meeting is being recorded.
Thanks everyone for coming to the May Survivorship Lecture Series. Good morning. I'm excited to introduce Jackie Herigodt. She has been with Imerman Angels since 2012. As the Director of Partnerships and Engagement, she oversees the Mentor Angel training, community events, and outreach and engagement efforts. She was primarily responsible for beginning Imerman Angels outreach on both the national and global levels. She's focused on strengthening partnerships with cancer organizations, cancer centers, and hospitals to expand the organization's reach. Jackie has been a caregiver to several loved ones with cancer, including her sister who has Lynch syndrome and is currently fighting stage 4 breast cancer. And she has also dealt with a personal skin cancer diagnosis. Losing many family members to cancer and caring for them during their treatment has fueled her passion for the Imerman Angels mission, which is to provide comfort and understanding for all cancer fighters, survivors, previvors, and caregivers through a personalized one-on-one connection with someone who has been there. So Jackie, please tell us all about your organization.
Well, thank you so much for having me, and thank you for y'all that are here and watching this. And I assume I'm already co-host, is that correct? Yeah.
Yeah, you should be able to share. Let me just make sure. Yeah.
Okay, let's see. I can pull up my window. Here we go. Excellent. IT is awesome when it works. There we go. Okay. So, thank you again for having me, and all the hard work y'all do over there. We get to, and I say get to, intentionally interact with a lot of patients from you all and sending them over. So I really appreciate the referrals that we receive from you. So just wanted to start off that way. But oftentimes I like to send this picture out first because people are always alarmed. They're like, yikes, who screwed up and put this slide into view? But really it's intentional because I feel that everybody can relate to this picture here. It's a picture of a restaurant. And so when anybody, may hear of a new restaurant or they want to try a new place, they're going to talk to somebody who's already been there. They're going to ask them questions like, how did you get there? Was it expensive? How was the service? What did you wear? What did you order? And the most important question is, how's the dessert? So, you're talking to somebody who's already had this experience so that maybe you can gain some more knowledge, feel a little stronger, maybe more confident, but definitely so that you feel like you know what lies ahead. So, of course, if people are wondering such things, these details about a restaurant, they're going to want to talk to somebody if they get diagnosed with cancer, or a loved one goes through a cancer diagnosis. They're going to want to talk to somebody who knows what this looks like. And so that's why I like to show this picture, because right now, so many people are feeling really isolated and alone. More than before, like more than ever, have people been reporting this feeling of loneliness. And it just doesn't make sense, especially in the world which we live, where there's this organization that I'm hoping you heard of, called Imerman Angels. And so at Imerman Angels, we provide these one-on-one matches for all cancer fighters, survivors, previvors, and caregivers to someone who's been there. We're providing this cancer confidant to really shed some light and understanding, because we envision a world where cancer is not a solitary experience. And as you heard, my name is Jackie Herigodt, and I'm the Director of Partnerships and Engagement. And this mission is super, super powerful to me because it's so personal. And, as you heard, I've been here since 2012. I joined the organization because I had already experienced a lot of loss due to cancer. My uncle, my grandfather, my grandmother, my aunt, and even my mom all passed from cancer. So you see, before Imerman Angels, I didn't even know there was a thing called a survivor. I just didn't know that that was possible. I knew that I needed a way to turn my pain into power. And Imerman Angels allowed me to do just that. You see, I knew I didn't have the brain to find a cure. I knew I didn't have the financials to fund a cure, but I definitely had the experience, heart, and empathy to help build these connections. So when I learned about the power and the mission of Imerman Angels, I became what's called a mentor angel. A mentor angel is a person that volunteers to throw that life raft back. A person that is now in the situation where they can help others. They become that cancer confidant, that light in a dark room for others that may need to hear from someone who's been there. They'll share tips and tricks. Like when people are going through these diagnoses, they have questions that are going through their brain, like, how am I going to balance life? Going to work and going to treatments. How will I tell my children? Again, is it expensive? What was that treatment like? And for caregivers, they're balancing the life of themselves and their loved one, and they still have to keep going forward with life. Life doesn't stop. And so they're also wondering, how do I work and take care of my loved one? How do I tell my children? Is this expensive? And quite oftentimes they're also thinking of, what happens if my loved one doesn't make it through this cancer diagnosis? Or even, now that my loved one hasn't made it through this cancer diagnosis, how could I possibly move on with my life? And then there's this whole other, demographic that we help too, called previvors. And so they are oftentimes predisposed to receive this cancer diagnosis. And then they've been caregivers, and they're wondering, what does this all mean? What do I do next? And so that's what a mentor angel can do, is help people through these questions. Now, oftentimes people are asking, do we train our mentor angels? We absolutely do. But we tell them that the bulk of their training is their own experience. We can't train them on that, nor would we want to, right? So we tell them that they have it within them, their knowledge, but also we provide them with a mentor angel guidebook and an interactive video. And inside this video, there's these quizzes that people have to take. And those quizzes allow them to gain knowledge and move forward. And then once they finish the videos and they pass, they actually get certified And I always say, then you can frame it and hang it over your fireplace and show it off to all your friends. But seriously, it is kind of like a graduation for these people. You know, they feel like they can really help. And because we are told time and time again that cancer turns people into feeling like victims, but Imerman Angels allows them to feel like a hero. And that's pretty powerful. Oops. So we're creating this magic. And this year, we're 18 years old. We are providing this type of peer-to-peer, one-on-one support for over 146 cancer types. We are currently at almost 15,000 mentors. We are currently at over 39,000 matches, which really, it's, if you put it up a bit, it's 40,000. And then imagine that's times 2, because every match has a mentor. So it's almost 80,000 people. We have obviously partners all over the place, hospitals like your own, and we're in 120 countries. Now I'm going to reflect back a little bit more about why I'm here, and to understand the personal element of this. So as you heard earlier in my introduction, my sister in 2019 got diagnosed with stage 4 breast. And I have to tell you, after working at Imerman Angels for already at that point 7 years, I was still just not knowing what to do and how to navigate the system. So I actually became somebody looking for support. I became a mentee. And I got connected to someone who also did what my sister really wanted, was this process called cold capping. And so I asked for somebody else that was on a cold capping team. And so the cold capping basically is when you put this cap on your head, it has gel and it freezes, and you have to spread it out throughout the cap and make sure that the person's entire head is covered at this low temperature to make sure that the hair follicles are frozen, and so that they get to keep their hair through the process. Now, this was not out of vanity or anything like that. My sister was very, very worried because she has an autistic son, and if you know anything about autism, it's really, really important to keep routine. And so she was worried that if she lost her hair, she wouldn't, her son would be just totally, confused and lost. And so she didn't want that. So long story short is this mentor angel that I requested, this caregiver mentor angel that I requested, had gone through cold capping with her sister. And she told me everything about the experience. And sure, you could probably look it up online, but I have to tell you that emotions are so heavy when you're going through this with a loved one. To be able to turn to someone and ask them all these details about what you're feeling and the process and what to order and how to do it. And, she was like my cheerleader going through this. And, you need that. And I even looked up what to order, and nobody had said at that point to get knee pads for your knees. And the reason that's so important is because when you're cold capping, you oftentimes get on the ground and your knees bruise. And my knees started to bruise because I didn't listen to my mentor. And so then after that experience, I went and bought knee pads. And after that, I never had that bruising again. And so these are the details that, somebody that's already gone through this experience could really share. And that's so important. So fast forward, I was cold capping my sister. And in 2020, so it was the latter part of 2019 where my sister got diagnosed, 2020, the beginning of, we're still going through chemo. And I'm literally on a break of cold capping. My phone rings and it's my dermatologist to let me know that I had skin cancer. And I'm not kidding when I tell you my response was, I don't have time for this. Let me tell you, my dermatologist didn't like that response very much, but it's truly how I felt. And that's oftentimes how the caregivers feel. So that's why we make sure to emphasize that we have that support for caregivers, because they're going through so much. So if you all, interact with the patients and you see the caregivers there, please know that our service can provide support for everybody impacted by cancer. Now, how do you get somebody to come our way? Well, there's a few different ways. You can direct them to our website, which is easy, imermanangels.org. And before I go any further with that, I like to always explain what is an Imerman. Because we often come across people not knowing why our name is Imerman, but also they start calling us mermaid angels or white angels. Are you a religious group? So Imerman Angels was founded from Johnny Imerman. He is a 2-time testicular cancer survivor. And when he was going through testicular cancer, he always had a room full of people always telling him it was going to be okay. He had his amazing mom, his brother, friends. I mean, his room was always packed. He often refers to it like a party in his room. But he couldn't turn to his mom and ask her what it was going to be like to date after testicular cancer. She didn't know. He couldn't even turn to his brother and say, what's it going to feel like when the chemo hits my veins? He didn't have that experience. So while he was surrounded by people, he said he never felt so isolated because he just didn't have anyone who understood his exact experience. And so it's like if someone says to you, yeah, go to that restaurant. This is what you order. This is how you get there. This is what you wear. No, it's not expensive. You're going to love it. And you're like, awesome. Thank you for all this information. When's the last time you were there? Never. That information from somebody who hasn't been there is just valuable. And so that's the power of Imerman Angels. So when somebody registers, we go ahead and get a hold of them. We set up an appointment, or we just reach out to them and we go ahead and hear what they need. Then we find them a mentor based off of what they've requested. We like to say we meet the people where they're at. So oftentimes people will ask for similar cancer diagnosis, but a lot more times it's about the experience as a whole. So, a single mom going through cancer to another single mom, or somebody going through a divorce while going through cancer, or, maybe even just about how did people return back to work after cancer. So it's about the experience and or the treatments or the diagnosis, and or one I like to point out is for the caregivers. You all might see people that I hope not, but in reality, they may pass away. And the caregivers, they lose y'all as their new friends. The routine of going to support their loved one while going through cancer, and obviously they lose their loved ones. So those people really need the support after, and we do provide that bereavement support. So I like to highlight that because people need that. Additionally, there's a phone number listed that you can also have someone call us if they don't have computer access. And so we will go ahead again, get back in touch with them, and go ahead and get them connected that way. Additionally, there are these paper referral forms. So if anyone needs them, please let me know. I can definitely get them to you, and our information will be listed at the end. But this gives you all the opportunity when you're sitting in front of somebody, because they're already going through so much, and I'm sure you hear, I wish I had, could talk to someone who's gone through this. You have this power in your hands by filling out this form. Once this form is filled out and sent back to us, we get back to the person within 2 business days. So it really does speed up the process. I just put this one up here as an example because we have partners all over. And so Moffitt is one of our highest referring cancer partners that we work with. But you all would just, put in the hospital name and or location, and we would know where the registration came from and go ahead and get a hold of that person immediately. So 97% of the people that do come our way, we survey them, and they have said 97% of the time they would recommend Imerman Angels. I think that's a really good percentage, so I'm pretty proud of that. Here are some of our partners that I mentioned. So all of these organizations here have us do their peer-to-peer. So they didn't want to recreate the wheel. They knew to turn to us and ask us to provide their one-to-one matches. Now, a lot of these organizations have amazing programs, but they don't have the peer-to-peer. So that's where we work together and make sure that we're really surrounding the patients and their families to make sure they get all this different opportunities and care. And it's been amazing to be able to also refer people back. If they have specific questions outside the peer-to-peer, we can turn to these organizations and get them additional information and support. And here are some other resources that we've put together. So what we found most downloaded on our website, which is why I wanted to highlight that, is our grief toolkit, because obviously anybody can experience grief. And so, especially with cancer, right? So we've put this grief toolkit together to help guide people. And that's been really useful. And then we do cancer resource guides on a quarterly basis. And here we pick a topic. Our upcoming topic is going to be on genetics, defining genetics and what it all means and why it's important. And our last cancer resource guide was about the uncertainties of cancer, which you can imagine there are so many. So these are all located along with a journal that we've had created, and these cancer partner resource guides. So they are all located on our website under immermanangels.org/resources. So please feel free to use them because we put a lot of time into them and really want them to get in the hands of the people that need it most. And that is most of the information, but I'm really excited to hear questions. And you can hover over that QR code if you have your phone, and that'll take you to our website, or the email and phone number. And obviously our website are listed there. But, I just want to thank you all for the time and this opportunity.
Thank you, Jackie. It's such a wonderful resource, and that you go beyond just providing the mentors and create these resource guides and information for patients dealing with cancer and taking care of their loved ones with cancer. It's really inspiring that you do this globally. I had one question for you quick, and then I'll open it up. You said 146 cancer types that you serve. what do you mean by that? What does that include?
So, there are obviously people that come to us that say they have breast cancer, but then, what type of breast cancer, right? So we get down into the nitty gritty of what does that mean. So if somebody has breast cancer, we will ask them, what's the subtype? What are your hormone receptors? What are your genetic mutations? And obviously not in that exact way, but we get this information so that we are super specific, to make sure that the person gets the best match and the best qualified mentor that has really truly had that similar experience. Because, as you all probably know, to match somebody with a triple positive to a triple negative hormone receptor breast cancer patient actually could be mentally harming to the people involved. And so we never want to do that. We're always very cognizant of all of these details and the staging and the metastases and all of this. And so we do this across the board for all cancer types. We get down to the subtype, hormone receptors, any targeted genetics, if the information is there. So the 146 cancer types is inclusive of like that.
Yeah, thanks for explaining that. And I always say to patients in clinic, I know you're going through, I haven't gone through this. I can't relate. So I open up the door for referring patients to Imerman angels. So, and it's Imerman, not Imermans.
Yes, everybody does that. I should have named that in my presentation too. We're not Charlie's Angels. It's Imerman Angels, yes.
Well, who else has questions? I'm sure Dr. Ganshaw, you have some comments or questions, and I'll open it up to the floor.
Yeah, thanks, Debbie. Thank you, Jackie. This was a great presentation, and it's so wonderful to learn all the details of this organization. And I love that you include previvors, right? So it's not just survivors, but it's also previvors. And I think that sometimes I forget that, right? But it's so important for us to because we work with a lot of previvors to let them know about
Oh, that's awesome. Well, thank you for letting me know that. Yeah, I mean, for us, I'll tell you the background on it, is that, when I first joined the organization, it was fighter survivor mostly. And then every now and then the caregivers would come in. And that was not okay for me, considering my background. And I was only a volunteer at the time. So, I had to basically stand the ground of what is it like to experience cancer as a caregiver. And so, being able to support the caregivers has been like a personal part of the journey, and listening to people and hearing their stories every day throughout the day. I mean, and watching the research change and the evolution of cancer has been so powerful. And so, back in 2012, people started talking about this BRCA thing, and my doctor said BRCA, and my doctor said, this BRCA, and, this is many years ago, right? So then it became such a common part of the conversation. And so watching people also have had the experience of being a caregiver, and then they too get diagnosed, right, with cancer, not necessarily the gene at that point, but watching the evolution of, I took care of my grandmother, I took care of my mom, I took care, and then now it's myself that I have to worry about. Just made sense to start implementing when people were saying, well, now I know this is the hereditary situation. I feel so isolated. What can I do? And so we were like, well, no, you need to be where you are, and we will start helping people that have had this experience. So it's just an organic mending of our mission to be inclusive, because really our platter is one of the most inclusive for peer-to-peer. We do have the world's largest database in this, because this is all we do. So I'm glad to hear that you all are supporting previvors because they need it.
We know that, and I know that personally because I've been a mentor angel to 7 previvors through Imerman Angels. So it's been great. All, young women in their upper 20s to early 40s, pretty much, because I myself have BRCA1. And it's just lending that ear and lending the experience, even if they don't relate to it, just to, introduce thoughts and to make them feel like they're not alone. And none of them have ever extended beyond that first phone call. But they all have my number if they have anything come up, and we really talk about and share like really intimate details too. Like you talk about dating with testicular cancer, dating with BRCA, and having organs removed is kind of weird. So sometimes these women just need to talk to someone about it. And it's been very beneficial for all of them. Like I say, it's just an hour that I've given to each of them. But they find it very helpful, I think. So yeah, the previvors are important, and that's great that you do that. We're finding lots more of them because we know a lot more exist that we haven't unearthed.
Yeah, I think it's just going to keep, I hope that, and I say this in the bittersweet way, is like, I just hope that we keep finding them so that we can have these preventative opportunities for them, to at least have a heads up, right? And so, thank you for sharing your story, of course, not only here, but also, with our mentees and becoming a mentor angel, because now, you've impacted these lives, probably way more than you can ever know. And that's what we hear on the back end is, they'll come back to us and tell us how impactful, their mentors have been. But additionally, I usually like to point out is that, it's beneficial for you as well as the mentor. There's stuff that when you go through it, you don't have time to process it. Right. But when you mentor someone else, you are thoroughly processing it. And it is so beneficial to be able to gain that trauma mastery of what is it that you just, experienced. And it's very therapeutic, I would say.
Yeah. And I will highlight for anyone that knows someone who might be interested at training was basically, looking over the manual. And so like Jackie said, it's mostly just based on your experience, and it's literally just talking to someone for a little while on the phone. So it's not a heavy lift by any means to help out and to get involved. So, and I love that you're getting involved with, again, so much more than just like individuals with cancer, doing the caregivers and the previvors and putting out resource guides and newsletters, expanding that reach.
Yeah. I mean, we're still staying true to our mission. But, really helping people understand what's happening within that match too is really important to us. Example, last year we did a whole quarter about end of life conversations. And, we had a caregiver mentor. She's been a mentor for us for 7 years as a caregiver. She lost her sister, who was 30 years old, to sarcoma. And this whole theme got brought up because she was talking about how she still had feelings about not talking to her sister about end of life. Like everybody knew she was dying. The sister knew she was dying. She knew she was dying, but they never knew how to bring up the conversation. So they didn't. And so they still all have feelings around this. She's in therapy around it. Like this is a hard conversation. So we put together on that resource guide, end of life one-liners, basically, because of that, to try to help people, come up with, because the biggest question that we found was, how do I even bring this topic up? And so on our resource page, we have a video that talks about it with the end of life doula, but also we have one-liners listed, and anyone can use that as well. But I bring this all up because, the end of life part is so hard, and really, Betty, you're the best. Thank you. Um, but I bring it up because, so many people are wondering and thinking about it, and, this tool could really help them. And we've gotten a lot of positive feedback on it. So please, again, use those resources and that link that the wonderful Betty just posted.
Wonderful. Betty, do you have anything to say?
Of course I do. Yeah, it's good to see all of you again. I wanted to chime in. Thank you for reminding us about your resources, Jackie, because I kind of forgot. And I just pulled the page up, obviously, and I'm tickled pink to be re-engage with those. They are really amazing. I absolutely love this end of life, conversation starters. We can all, you hate to start with something blank. It's great if you're given a few words, right? What a great tool.
Right.
I also wanted to say, I work in the adolescent and young adult space, the 15 to 39-year-olds with cancer. And I have recently been exposed to a new type of AYA, and that is the AYA who becomes the caregiver of their parent. I have, again, another cancer in my immediate family, and it's a stage 3C anal cancer. My 22-year-old niece is taking care of her mother. And I have shared Imerman Angels with them both, but the trauma of this diagnosis and their lives being completely changed has kind of paralyzed them. So I will remind them, but I feel like, I have had cancer experience. I've worked in cancer, but every new diagnosis you encounter is like starting from scratch practically. And I feel like this may be a time that I might even use Imerman Angels to find somebody who is a caregiver, who is like one step removed and maybe even in the cancer world, because it's messed with my head immensely again.
Right.
So thank you so much. And I was just dumbfounded by your numbers, the slide you put up with how many people you've engaged and all those cancers. And curious, I guess I'm getting to my question after I'm giving accolades and processing all of this, is do you even divide by stage when you're matching people?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay.
This goes back to those nitty gritty details, that if, someone is not trained appropriately, they could actually harm someone by mismatching them. And so stage is definitely one of those that we consider, along with metastases, and subtypes, and, HPV versus not HPV. We take all of this into consideration because it's all part of how someone is treated, and emotionally and physically. And, again, just want to make sure that I say, Betty, I'm sorry to hear that. And absolutely, we would love to support you and your family members to get them connected. We do have what's called caregivers from afar. So helping people, I don't know if she lives close by, but, people that, listen, when your family gets diagnosed, it still has an impact whether you're in it every single day or you're not. And so having people that are far away, sometimes it actually adds more anxiety because they don't know what's going on and they're not in the everyday mix. And so those people need support too. And we definitely have mentors that have had that experience. Maybe they fly in every now and then and take their loved one to their treatments, or, these kind of things. it doesn't mean that because you're not there every day, it hasn't, had any, impact on you. That's just not true. And so we recognize that as well. So
That's
sending your family well
Thank
wishes and hoping that you do indeed, come our way, because it could be helpful.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that. And that's great to hear about the caregivers far away. I cannot emphasize enough for all the clinicians here or anybody who's patient facing here to suggest Imerman Angels. They may be like my family currently is and not able to reach out, but even post primary care, like I said, I work in that AYA world, and those decades that many of them now live is when they really, really, really need to find somebody who's like them and want to bounce things off of, after you go through the treatment and you can like sit there and go, holy cow, what happened? Finding somebody who you match with like that is just, I think, an incredible gift you can give somebody who has been diagnosed with cancer.
Yeah, thank you for saying that. It's true too. We're seeing more and more older people coming our way that were diagnosed years ago. And because now we have more survivors than ever, they've had time to think about, oh wow, to your point, like they've gone through this, but they had to go through it because they needed to do it to survive, right? And now they're like, well, but the side effects and the thoughts and the, I know that you guys have heard of survivor's guilt. Like this is all real, right? And so people need to talk about this, and sure they could have, a therapist, but it's still not the same. A therapist could say, sure, go to a restaurant. They could do that too. But if they haven't been there, they're not going to be able to tell them what dessert is best. And I'm not saying that one is better over the other. I'm saying that, obviously all is important. All of that is important to support these people going through this. So to your point, like when people are going through the thick of the thick, they may not be intrigued, but if you're watching that, don't give up. Reintroduce the idea of talking to somebody who's gone through it, because I can tell you, after 12 years, how many times have I heard, I wish I would have registered earlier. I mean, I don't have enough fingers or toes, for sure. So, please just keep it in top of mind. I know there's obviously financial issues and nutrition and all of these other things, keeping a roof over your head. These are important things too. But I tell you, if you have somebody that's already gone through it, that talks about the resources of how they got to stay in their home, how did they support themselves while going through cancer, how did they eat, like these different things, to share those tips and tricks, that's a light in the dark room that's going to get them through it. And so just, keep staying strong with the idea of having them talk to someone when they're ready. So I'll just say that.
Yeah, some people just aren't there yet, aren't ready to engage.
Exactly.
So it's, we bring up on multiple occasions all the resources that exist and try to encourage people to get involved, because you're right. It's something that's just so helpful. And I want to highlight too, Teresa, geez, thank you. I was going to just bring this up. This is a truly global organization. One of my former colleagues at the Cancer Center I worked with, she got very involved with Imerman Angels, and then she contacted me as setting up the Mentor Angels from Africa. So
Yep.
Jackie, talk a little bit about your geographic area and where all these resources exist.
Yeah. So even before pandemic was the thing, Imerman Angels really is remote. We don't see people typically in person. We're doing this all by website, computer, phone. Texting is now a thing. So we're really working in a space that has no boundaries because cancer doesn't. So we won't either. We're going to keep going as far as people need this service. And so you're 100% correct, Debbie. We have somebody that works in Ghana now. We have somebody that, this is so funny because it's so not as far, but New Jersey. So it's kind of fun. We have volunteers located all over the place, India, and there's another one that is just coming on board who is in France. So, I mean, we're really spreading out because we know that we have to. And we're really excited about, matching people that would never find each other. One of the fun matches we had recently was a gentleman who had non-Hodgkin's lymphoma in Ireland, and we matched another non-Hodgkin's lymphoma in Ireland. So, I mean, it's just, the more people that come our way, the more likely we are going to be able to match someone local to them, if that is in fact the request. And that's also a big question that typically happens is geographically we are super wide, and it's great if somebody actually wants to match to someone local to them. But we always say too, we don't promise that, because just because you think it's a good idea to match somebody local, if the person hasn't told their family, which oftentimes is the case, or they've not shared it with their employer, they don't want people local to them to talk to. They want somebody that's not close to them, so that they know that they feel more confident that, the word won't get out about their cancer experience, or the word won't get back to their loved one. So, but we are global, 120 countries so far. I plan on expanding it, so keep them coming, which always does the second question. I'll just throw it out there, languages. So we have in office Spanish speaking, but we also have volunteers that spread across so many different languages. I cannot name them all, but and I will say that I have an entire part of what we do, which is called targeted outreach, based off of my experience. And targeted outreach is AKA stalkerism. So if we don't have it in our database, we will find somebody to match with the person looking for support. So
I was wondering that too, how you find these angels.
Yeah.
And another question arose in the chat, and I already answered it, but will you tell us how much this service costs, Jackie?
Yes, it's the high cost of zero. Zero. Yes, there is no cost to our service, for sure. Only benefits, no cost. So
Yeah.
And yes, California is definitely covered. They're actually one of our highest referring systems that I just did a report on yesterday is Kaiser Permanente. And so they are out in California very widely and elsewhere. But yes, California is big for us.
Great. Anyone else with Pam?
Yeah, I have another question. What percentage of your patients or mentors identify as male?
Always a fun question. Those men. Okay, so they don't like to talk typically as much as women, is what we find. And so I don't know all the reasons, but it definitely sways more to the women's side. We are about 70% female versus male. But what we find is the impact actually through our surveys show that the men actually have more of a beneficial situation, because they're so not used to talking to someone else. They're so not used to talking about their emotions that it actually benefits them more, because I feel like women are, they, like me, I go to Walgreens, I meet my next best friend, right? So, but men are much more closed, and this is all totally stereotyping. But for the most part, we are finding that men state that they have really appreciated being able to turn to someone, and also in privacy, to be able to have these conversations and no one necessarily even knows, has been a huge impact for them. And even with the caregiver husbands, like, how many men want to ask for directions? I don't know, but asking how to be the best caregivers, I mean, that's a whole other thing. So husbands will want to talk to other husbands on how to take care of their wife. But I think the importance is that we're seeing numbers change. That was a historic percentage. And so at the end of the year, I'll be pulling that, because I feel like more men are coming to us now than before. And I'm really excited about that. So thank you for that question.
We're starting to, and Debbie, I know you've pushed this out, but identify more organizations, cancer or more support organizations for men that might be interesting to partner with, right? The way we have with others for that, especially for that one.
Yeah, Jackie, I will forward you those different organizations, because I've heard about a few of them recently.
Please, so, that would be amazing.
Yeah, if you can recruit from there, that would be, Cactus Cancer. Yeah, that's the guys' discussion group. Other ones are Cancer Dudes, Man Up to Cancer, and A Touchy Subject. So,
what was the last one? Touchy Subject?
Touchy Subject.
Hilarious. If you don't mind sending those, that would be fantastic.
I had to comment. It was just funny because it's, talking about men with cancer, and they have a big picture of a woman on the front page. Anyway, I was like, really? Read the room. Well, thank you, Jackie. I know people are also starting to sign off. This has been a wonderful talk about cancer survivors and caregivers at a real, down to earth level, not, some esoteric topic. So it's been really wonderful to engage everyone in discussion about this today. So thank you, Jackie, very much for coming and speaking in the lecture series, and I will be forwarding out the recording. Just an announcement before we all sign off. On the 14th, right, Pam? It's the 14th, Friday, the 14th. That's the 15th one. I thought was the 15th.
I thought that's what you were announcing. Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah. So Friday, June 14th is a event with Wellness House, the Cancer Health Equity Summit. So, and bringing together a lot of folks in cancer across the city to collaborate and talk about helping to break down these disparities and barriers. I'll be sending out an email with the invite to this as well, so everyone can register.
Yeah, and it's very provider focused, right? But providers across the leaders of community orgs, like those that are involved in providing services for cancer survivors. That's the Friday, and then Saturday is the survivorship event.
Saturday is for survivors. So that one is for the patients. So maybe you want to advertise that too and pass that along to Jackie as well, so she can.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, actually, too, for us, if people are local and they're interested in run walking, we have our biggest fundraiser on June 15th. Called the Brunch Run. So even if you don't like running or walking, but you like brunching, you are welcome to come. So I just put the
and you guys can run to our survivorship event and come have lunch with us.
Love it. That would be fantastic. Yes.
Awesome. All awesome networking. And we appreciate everyone. And thank you all for coming this morning. Next month, we'll have Dr. Ganshow speaking about cancer survivorship models. So, everyone, have a
Thank
great day.
Great. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Jackie. Thanks, Betty.
Thank you.
Bye.
Take care.